Hello, and welcome back. In this video, we're going to be wrapping up the Go CLI expense tracker app that we've been working on. The first thing that we'll do is improve the user experience for when new users start the app, always making sure that the CSV data file has been created. Finally, we'll wrap up development by covering how to build a Go application such that it can be distributed to different systems. Let's get right into it. Imagine you're a new user and you just downloaded this app. You would therefore not have this expenses.csv file packaged with your binary. So to demonstrate the new user experience, we could go ahead and delete expenses.csv, but let's not do that. And instead, we'll just append a 1 to the file that it's going to open. So if I do a go run period, and we're going to try to add an expense, so write to this file that technically does not exist. Let's see what happens. So add, the source will be J1, and then the amount will be 1122. And when I hit enter, we see that we get an error opening file because that's just like the really basic error message that we decided to print. But really what happens is that the file just doesn't exist. So therefore there is no file to open, and we subsequently get this error. But that's not a good user experience. We need to find out how are we going to create this file, or at least ensure that it is always there upon startup of the application. Well, just like any other application that we write, everything begins in the main.go. So over here, we just have the command.execute function. We can add more logic here to ensure that that expenses CSV exists. So we'll add to this, and we'll just try to open the file. We'll say underscore error is going to be equal to os.open, and we'll pass in that data path. So data expenses.csv. Now the reason why we're ignoring the file variable that we could get back is because we're not actually trying to do anything with that file in this main function. What we really are concerned with is the error that we could potentially get back. So if we have an error, that means that error is not nil. So if error is not nil, that means that it must be some kind of error. So we can do another check. We'll say if errors, so using the errors package, we can use the is function basically to compare it and say, is this error another kind of error? So you pass in error and the type of error you're going to compare against. So os.error not exist. And if so, then we'll create the file. And to do so, we'll just do os.create, pass in that data path, so current directory data expenses.csv, and that's all we need to do. Now, if this error is anything else, then we'll go ahead and print a different error. So we'll have format.print line unexpected error occurred. And actually, we'll go back and just make that all lowercase. So hopping back in our expense adder file, let's remove that one that we were using earlier. And so we're going to try to open up that expenses CSV again, right? But now I'm confident enough that we can just delete that expenses CSV and test this for real. So let's rerun what we had earlier. So go run add with the source of J1 and the amount of 1122. And when we run it, we get absolutely no input back, which means that this should have been successful. As you can see over here in the data folder, we have expenses.csv. When you open it, we get the ID of 0. Then we get J1, the amount and cents, and then that big timestamp. So let's go back up here, delete that line, and run back over to main.go. So once we have created this, we should go ahead and write back to the file real quick. So create actually returns to us a file and an error object. So I'm going to write file and then underscore. I'm just going to ignore that error just for brevity's sake right now. And with this, we'll create a new writer. So CSV writer will be initialized to the csv.newWriter given the file, and don't forget to put the colon up there. Then we can write with the CSV writer, write a new string out, and it's just going to be ID, what is it, source. Yeah, we write ID source amount and then the created at timestamp. So source amount created at, and then below this we'll just make sure that the buffer is flush, so csv writer dot flush, and we're good to go. So let's retest this one more time. So delete that file, go back down to the terminal, rerun that command, and now when we go back to look at expenses, we get the ID which matches up with 0, source matches up with J1, amount with 1122, and create at with that timestamp. Building Go applications is super easy thanks to Go's tooling. In the parent directory of my application, all you need to write is go build period. And when we go look over on the left side, we see that expense-tracker.exe has been added. So to confirm that it actually runs, just do period/expense-tracker, and we get that help list printed out to us. The one downfall of having our exe placed right here is that it's only accessible in this location. So if I was in the data folder, I would actually have to go up a parent directory and then call the expense tracker.exe. As you can see, it's still printed out. But this isn't optimal, and instead, we should be able to call this binary from basically anywhere on our machine. Instead of using go build, we can do go install. So when I do go install, now that installs the binary up into the go path where it holds all of the binaries and tools that I've built so far, which Go should have already set this for you. So now I can just type in expense-tracker and we get the list printed out to us. Now those two commands are perfect when building for our machine only. But what if we wanted to distribute this app to Linux users or Mac OS? Well, Mac OS and Linux users can't execute .exe files. It's a different architecture and a different operating system. But thanks again to Go's tooling, all we have to do is just tweak a couple settings so that we can build the application for those users too. First, let's take a look at our environment for our operating system that Go holds. All you need to do is do go env go os, and we see that Go is building for a Windows machine. And if we also want to look at the architecture, you just put in go arch and we get AMD 64. Now let's say our friend wanted this application, but they're on Linux. All we need to do is change our Go OS environment variable. Now from Windows, we just have to type $env go os is equal to Linux. And so when I go back over to check the Go OS that we're going to build for, we get Linux. So I will go ahead and build the app again, do the period. Takes a little bit more time because it doesn't have the cached value. But now we see that we have this expense tracker that just got pulled up, and that's built just for Linux AMD 64 architecture. If I want to reverse my OS to basically reset it back to what I was originally using, all you have to do is just rerun that command and put in Windows. And that's it for the video. I hope you learned something along the way of creating this Go CLI expense tracker app. If you learned anything from this series or enjoyed the video, I encourage you to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.